Happy Halloween, Gus, by Jacklyn Williams. Illustrated by Cushman.
Gus and Bean sat in the living room watching Saturday morning cartoons. It was almost Halloween, and they were talking about their costumes for the Halloween parade. Ah! Gus shouted, "Billy wins every year. This year, when the Halloween parade is over, I'll be holding first prize for the best costume." Gus and Bean ran up the stairs to the attic. They unlocked the trunk and threw open the lid. Inside, it smelled like the rest of the room, old and dusty. Bean started digging in the trunk. "Look at this," he cried, holding up a fur coat. "You could be a hairy, scary monster." "Good idea," said Gus. "Let's go outside, and I'll try it on." As Gus tried on his costume, Billy stuck his head over the backyard fence. "Nice costume," he teased. "The mask you're wearing is really scary." "Oops, you're not wearing a mask." He laughed. Gus made a mean face at Billy. "Just ignore him," said Bean. "You've got more important things to worry about, like parades and prizes and marching." The biggest problem Gus faced was marching. He just couldn't march. No matter how hard Gus tried, he couldn't make his feet do what he wanted them to. "How am I ever going to be in a parade if my feet won't march?" he sighed. "You have to march to a beat," said Bean, as he handed Gus a piece of bubble gum. "Try this. March while you chew. March, march, march. Chew, chew, chew." Bean marched in a circle. Gus practiced marching around the backyard. Left, chew, chew, chew. Right, chew, chew, chew. "I'm marching," Gus cried. "I'm marching. I'm also scratching. This hairy costume is driving me crazy." Around and around Gus marched, stopping every few steps to scratch. March, scratch, all the way around the yard. "Quit scratching and keep marching," ordered Bean. Just then, his right foot tangled with his left. Crash! Over Gus tumbled head first into the sandbox. When he climbed out, he was a hairy, scary, gummy, sandy mess. "What am I going to do now?" shrieked Gus. "I can't wear this." "Don't worry about it," laughed Billy, patting Gus on the back. "Instead of a monster, you can be Sandy Claus." "Don't listen to Billy," said Bean. "It'll be all right. We'll think of something." The day of the parade finally arrived. Mr. Chase, the school principal, put on his judge's hat. "Everyone, line up single file," he said. "The parade is about to begin." The children stood behind one another. There were clowns, kings, ghosts, and goblins. There was even a giant bluebird and a small green dinosaur. The line stretched around the auditorium and spilled out the door. At the head stood Billy, dressed as Captain Super Guy. At the end stood Gus, wrapped in toilet paper. "I can't breathe," he complained. "You wound me too tight." "Forget about breathing," said Bean. "Start marching, and whatever you do, remember to chew." "Let the parade begin," shouted Mr. Chase. The music started. So did the children. Through the door and around the auditorium they went. The more they marched, the more nervous Gus got. The more nervous Gus got, the more he chewed. Then, Gus started to blow a bubble. First, the bubble was as big as his face. Pretty soon, it was bigger than his head. Before he knew it, the bubble was as big as he was and still growing. As Gus started through the door, so did a giant gust of wind. The wind sent Gus and his bubble bouncing across the floor. "Stop that bubble!" shouted Mr. Chase as the bubble went bouncing by him. "It's going to pop," hollered Bean. But the bubble didn't pop. It just kept bouncing around the room, dragging Gus along with it. It was so sticky that everything in its path stuck to it too. First, it picked up a princess. Next, it grabbed a goblin. Then, it snatched a spider. On and on it bounced, picking up clowns, kings, mice, mermaids, firefighters, and fairies. On its fourth trip around the room, it grabbed the giant bluebird and the small green dinosaur. Bean began to laugh. "My horns!" he shouted as the big bubble landed on his helmet. The bubble bounced one last time. Then it sprang high into the air and came down. Pop! "Yikes!" screamed Billy. "We're going to get slimed." He jumped out of line and started running toward the door. After the mess was cleaned up, Mr. Chase announced the winner of the Halloween parade. "No doubt about it," announced Mr. Chase. "This year, first prize for best costume goes to Gus." "I knew the bubble was going to miss me," Billy insisted. "I was just pretending to be scared." Gus just smiled as he accepted his prize, a trophy and more bubble gum.